Minnesota Governor and our next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz, sat down for his first official interview since becoming the Democratic nominee for Vice President, and he did so by going into the Lion's Den. Yes, he did this interview on the Fox propaganda outlet, and I am so glad that he did, because even before Tim Walz was the vice presidential nominee, he was well known, much like Pete Buttigieg is, for being incredible when taking down talking points from the Fox propaganda outlet. He had one interview that he did so well on that Donald Trump truth socialed at Fox, telling them to stop bringing the enemy on because he is so great at what he does. And he was incredible this morning, shutting down and shutting up the MAGA lies from the Fox host and really just flipping the script on her in an interview that he absolutely crushed. And I couldn't be more excited to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the community that we are building on this channel. Now let's get into this interview with this clip right here.
Your position is, and the vice president's position as well. I want to talk about abortion, too, because this came up at the debate. It's been a winning argument for Democrats on many ballots, but I want to clarify what the law is there in Minnesota. Abortion Finder, a website that helps women find access, says abortion is legal throughout pregnancy in Minnesota. There is no ban or limit on abortion in Minnesota based on how far along in a pregnancy you are. You signed the bill that makes it legal through all 9 months. Is that a position you think Democrats should advocate for nationally?
Look, the vice president and I have been clear. The restoration of Roe versus Wade is what we're asking for.
But that
this
law
is a
goes
woman's
far
right
beyond Roe v. Wade.
To make her own choice. The law is very clear. It does not change that. That was been debunked on every occasion.
But
look,
wait,
this is a.
Let's agree. What you signed is there's not a single limit through 9 months of pregnancy. Roe had a trimester framework that did have limits through the pregnancy. The Minnesota law does not have that.
This puts the decision with the woman and her health care providers. The situation we have is when you don't have the ability of health care providers to provide that, that's where you end up with a situation like Amanda Zaworski in Texas, where they are afraid to do what's necessary. This doesn't change anything. It puts the decision back on to the woman, to the physicians, and we know that this is simply something to be brought up to be very clear. Donald Trump's asking for a nationwide abortion ban.
Wait, he
and
has
again,
said that
we don't see this as a winning
repeatedly
campaign.
That he will not sign a national abortion ban. Are you calling that just, it's a flat-out lie?
Yes, of course, and Senator Vance has in the past said so too. Now look, they may see this as an election issue. We see it as a right of women to make their own bodily decisions. And that's what the states like my state have the ability to put that in. States like Georgia force women to cross the border, and then we have a death of Amber Thurman. So let's be very clear. Trying to cut hairs on an issue on this is not where the American public's at. They want the restoration of Roe versus Wade. Vice President Harris said she would sign it. That's what we'll do when we're elected.
But to be clear, the Minnesota law is far beyond Roe v. Wade. And about the Amber Thurman case in Georgia, her family has, and it's tragic, she is a young mother who left behind a young son. But what her family has said is it was a complication from an abortion pill that she received, and she didn't get proper care when she went to a Georgia hospital, which had multiple opportunities to intervene there. Her own attorney, the family's attorney, says it wasn't the Georgia law, it was the hospitals. What he claims is malpractice, not treating her when she clearly showed up in distress and still had the byproducts of her pregnancy because of that rare complication from the abortion pill. So just to be clear on the Georgia law and how her family and her attorney sees it.
I think they also indicated that had she not go to North Carolina after the debate the other night, that she would have been in a better position. So look, these are the situations you're going to get into when you take this decision and put it in the hands of politicians like Donald Trump rather than women and their doctors. We trust women, we trust doctors, and we know the outcomes of that are better.
Okay, let's clarify more changes that you signed in Minnesota as well. Several things were repealed with respect to reporting infants who may have survived an abortion attempt. Language that used to be part of the statute was taken out. We'll put this on the screen so people can see. It used to require medical personnel to, quote, preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. That language has been repealed. It's no longer part of the law. Also struck from the law was language about reporting infants that are born alive, what treatment they receive, and whether they live or die. Why was it important to you to get that protection out of the law?
Minnesota law aligns with every other case of what physicians are required by their ethical responsibilities. And so it changed nothing other than aligning with all care that physicians provide in any circumstance for any medical case. And so it's alignment, as it's always been. It's the cases we've seen in Minnesota, the outcomes we get in our healthcare results are the best in the nation. And all it did was align with existing law.
But you do acknowledge it takes out the language about preserving the life of an infant who was born alive.
Every doctor has an ethical responsibility to provide what they can in each situation. That is the way the law is written now. It's the same for any person who shows up. And again, this is a distraction from the real issue here is women being forced into miscarriages, women being forced to go back home, get sepsis, potentially die, like we saw in cases in Texas, and maternal mortality rates in Texas have skyrocketed off the charts because of this. This is bad policy. Vice President and I have been very clear on this. We will restore the rights of Roe versus Wade. We will make sure women have their health care decisions. We will not put people's lives at risk because of the geography of where they live. And it will go back to the way it was before Donald Trump gleefully said, we've got the best of both worlds here. Things are wonderful. The states are handling it. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a beautiful thing to see women dying. It's not a beautiful thing to put doctors at risk of being imprisoned.
It is not. It is not to see any single woman suffer. And by the way, there's not a single state, no matter how pro-life or restrictive their laws are, that do not allow a doctor to intercede. That's true in Georgia and Texas as well. I want to turn to
So clearly just a bunch of gotcha questions there from the MAGA Fox host, which we will see more of in this next clip we're going to check out. But what we will also see more of is perfect responses from Tim Walz, like that one that we just saw, flipping the script on the MAGA Fox host, not only talking about the success of the policy in Minnesota, but talking about the ways that the fear-mongering that Republicans tried to do around abortion, like we see Donald Trump pushing these false claims about post-birth abortions. But what is true is that Donald Trump's abortion bans have cost life. We know that to be true because when doctors are called in to give women the medical assistance that they need, that they could get in other states without these disgusting abortion bans, they are afraid to do their jobs because of Donald Trump, because of MAGA, and because of their disgraceful abortion bans. That's the truth. Post-birth abortions are not. And so a perfect job from Tim Walz shutting up the MAGA host, shutting down those lies. And that's exactly what he did with the more gotcha questions were thrown at him. He wasn't shaken. He wasn't bothered. Let's check it out.
Events. A lot of people would say they couldn't get away with saying, I'm just too passionate, my grammar's not right, I'm a knucklehead. What do you say to the American people who think, I don't know that I can trust this guy with all those modifications to be the potential commander-in-chief of this country?
Yeah, well, I think they heard me. They heard me the other night speaking passionately about gun violence and misspeaking. And I got to be honest with you, Shannon, I don't think people care whether I used IUI or IVF when we talk about this. What they understand is Donald Trump would resist those things. Look, I speak passionately. I had an entire career, decades before I was in public office. They know, and I'm very proud of my 24 years in service and my record. I have never disparaged someone else in this, but I know that's not what Donald Trump does. They disparage everyone. The personal attacks. I will own up when I misspeak. I will own up when I make a mistake. Let's be very clear. On that debate stage the other night, I asked one very simple question, and Senator Vance would not acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. I think they're probably far more concerned with that than my wife and I used IUI to have our child, and that Donald Trump would restrict that. So I think folks know who I am. My constituents here in Minnesota have elected me 8 times. They know where I'm at, and I'm proud to be on the ticket, and we'll deliver just like we have here in Minnesota.
And so these gotcha questions are just so sad to see. Of course, expected from the Fox propaganda network, but it was so perfect of Tim Walz in answering these tough questions, because again, they were tough questions, to bring up the fact that J.D. Vance couldn't have answered maybe one of the easiest questions he could have been asked, who won the 2020 election, showing that he is just completely unfit to do the job of vice president. Not that we needed any more information to come to that conclusion, but if we did need any more information about Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and I think it's always great to provide a little bit of contrast, then I think this clip shows exactly why they're so unfit.
Day one, I will seal the border and stop the migrant invasion into our country. We will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of the United States. Dwight Eisenhower right now has that record.
While Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are running a campaign of joy, a campaign to end the fear-mongering and division caused by Donald Trump and the destructive abortion bans implemented by MAGA because of Donald Trump, what is he doing? He's screaming about Hannibal Lecter and windmills and the largest deportation effort in history, in which, one, he doesn't have a plan for, and two, would not only be completely immoral, but devastating to our economy. But I guess devastating our economy, destroying our economy is what Donald Trump is best at. He did it in his first term. I guess he wants to do it if he won a second. But we cannot allow that to happen. And that's why we have to continue to call out the lies of Donald Trump, continue to call out the lies of J.D. Vance, and of course, continue to call out the lies of the Fox Propaganda Network, much like Tim Walz. And we're going to continue to do that on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.